afternoon. My name is Anne Valence. I'm one of the senior sisters in the neonatal unit here in Forth Valley Royal, and I've been asked to give a small talk on the care given in the early years. Forth Valley birth rate is approximately 3,500 per year. Of that, 8 to 10% of these babies will require admission into the neonatal unit. Preterm or ill babies are extremely vulnerable, and they require vigilance from those who care for them. For a parent, giving birth to a preterm or ill baby is an extremely anxious time. Their expectations is that their baby will receive the best care possible in a safe healthcare environment. They also have the right to expect that evidence-based care is delivered by those who care for them. To help us provide this, we have an appropriately trained staff. We also have a very well-equipped purpose-built unit. This wee baby here is Max. He's 33 weeks gestation, which makes him 7 weeks early. He's 12 days old, weighs 2 kilos, and he's nursed in an incubator to maintain his temperature. He has a venflon in his left hand for IV drugs. He's unable to suck all his feeds, so he has a tubing to help us do that. A large number of babies born as early as 16 weeks prematurely can now survive after delivery with appropriate care. This in part is due to the use of steroids given to the mum while she is pregnant. These encourage her baby's lungs to develop quicker. Also, the administration of Curacurf, which is inserted into the baby's lungs after delivery. This is a substance which we all have and need for our lungs to work properly, but which is lacking in a preterm or ill baby. The other factors which have contributed to improving the survival rate is the advancement in technology. In Forth Valley Royal, we can provide care for 5 babies requiring intensive care, 2 babies requiring high dependency care, and 13 babies requiring special care. Ryan, who's in the picture, is actually now 2 years old and is doing well. The neonatal staff care not only for the infant, but also for parents, siblings and grandparents. This involves supporting the family emotionally and practically, encouraging the parents to be involved in their baby's care from admission to discharge. It is important that families feel confident in and are involved in the decision-making process, and we actively encourage this. 18 months ago, a number of parents who they themselves had an ill baby set up a group to help raise funds. They've been very successful and are now registered as a charity called So Precious. Last year, they donated a £35,000 top-of-the-range scanning machine to the unit. This machine aids the medical staff in their delivery of care. They are now busy organising an enchanted garden ball, which is taking place on the 28th of this month in Dublin. So how have things improved for parents and babies? The changes include a visitor waiting area with tea, coffee facilities, television, information leaflets, a place really that parents can just sit and chat. We have 2 parent overnight rooms for both the mum and the dad to stay over if needed. We have a team of advanced neonatal nurse practitioners who practice equivalent to a registrar level. Our outreach service allows babies to be discharged home, but with the reassurance that a member of the nursing team will visit them at home, and in the last 4 years we've had 500 visits. The Scottish Patient Safety Programme has several recommendations, so one being the reduction in infection. We have had no significant infection over the last 2 years, but you'll hear more about the Patient Safety Programme later on. We try to promote an optimal environment for growth and development by reducing unnecessary light and noise, and by recognising and responding to baby cue signs. And by finding more effective ways of working and effective use of all resources, this enabled us to devote more time to direct patient care. Where's our life, there is death. We have a staff group who have undergone additional training in bereavement and ways in which to support parents through this traumatic experience. This is a good bit. These awards have come about due to the commitment and dedication of staff working together to create a positive culture that promotes safety and by instigating a zero tolerance to unsafe practice. The first three here are national awards. The Celebrating Success is an NHS poster event showing all the work that you had carried out around patient safety. The Royal College of Midwife Awards, staff had put together a bereavement package to ensure that all the necessary paperwork required was carried out. It is exceptionally distressing for parents if they have to return to the ward because of incomplete paperwork. And the NHS Healthcare Award. My heart was so full of pride when our team was nominated for this by a general manager and a consultant, but more so by a set of parents, and the award was for care of children. We also had 2 articles published in the Infant Journal highlighting work carried out in the year. I will leave you with this promise. Newborn babies and their families will receive high quality, evidence-based care which is both efficient and timely. The quality of that care will remain as high standard and be delivered in a safe and secure environment.
One of my roles is health improvement. We just heard one of the ways that we're looking at providing better and improving services for very young, vulnerable babies. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing for babies and children, then talk a little bit about health improvement in general. I wouldn't be doing my duty if I wasn't going to talk to you about alcohol and smoking, so it's to come. One of my themes is actually about partnership working. We in the health service can do what we can to improve services, but we can't do it on our own. We have to work with other partners like local authorities and charities, third sector, but we also have to do it with you. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can make a choice about how you live, what exercise you take, what you eat, and so whether you smoke or not is ourselves. So we have to work with everybody. I'm going to start off talking a little bit about a programme that we have called the Early Years Programme. And this focuses on what we're doing for very young children. And the theme there is about partnership working, how we, as our whole lot of agencies, particularly local authorities and the health service, and in the case of child protection with police as well, how we work best together to ensure that we have the best possible care for children and we protect them against abuse and harm. And one of the things we've done in recent years is we've actually got all 3 agencies working together in the same place, in a hub, so that there's the best coordination of services, and that's proving to be very effective. More generally, we have now an integrated assessment form between health and social care, so we're both working from the same assessment. It doesn't have to be repeated, people don't have to say the same things over and again, and people have a common idea of what's happening. The third thing is that in this programme it's very important that there's a named person for every child, so that one person has got the overview of everything that's happening for that child. So there's not a danger of one authority knowing something, another with something else, and the 2 not actually sharing it. So there's one person who has this overview of what's happening. It's a very active programme. We're doing a lot and there's still lots to do. I've been highlighting things that we're doing and moving on, but I just want to take the opportunity to remind people of a very important health improving measure which is very long standing, and that's immunisation. You'll have heard immunisations are a very effective way of protecting us children, particularly against various infectious diseases. Now you'll have heard in the press a lot about whooping cough, or pertussis to give it its posh name, and there's a lot of it about in the community at the moment. You've probably also read that it's affected staff in this hospital. And it's just to say that if any of you, the grandchildren, children, whatever, just to encourage you to make sure that the babies are immunised when they should be immunised. And that's, usually it's in 2, 3 and 4 months, but certainly before the age of 6 months. It's very important so that they are protected. It's not a very serious disease in adults, but it can be very serious in babies, in very young children. I want to move on now. I'm sticking with the theme of children, but I want to talk a little bit bit about the government targets that we're given and the ones that relate particularly to children. Talking about young children, we have a target around breastfeeding, which still remains a challenge for us. That means we're not actually achieving it, but we're trying our hardest. And we've still a lot to do. We've been doing a lot of work, and we've achieved baby-friendly accreditation for our staff in the inpatients, which is a huge achievement. We're looking at ways that we can support new mothers to breastfeed if they're able, but we've still a ways to go there. We also have, you might have seen that one of the posters through there is a poster about Max in the Middle. And this is an initiative to look at how we help children to be the right weight for their height. And it's a very innovative program where you use dance and drama to make it fun. But there's quite a serious message. It's about how you are able to make the right choices. And nobody's pretending it's easy. It's not easy for us. It's not easy for children. But it's how you might give people tools to make the right choices, but also introduce children to healthy eating and healthy foods. So we hope that that will help them have the tools to, lifelong tools to grow up and eat a healthy diet and keep physically active. The other area in children is around dental health, and holes in your teeth are entirely preventable. They're preventable through fluoride toothbrushing and eating the right things. So we've got a big campaign for children, particularly in nurseries, and particularly in areas where there are poorer circumstances, to encourage children to brush their teeth regularly, and it's proving to be very effective. We now have far fewer children at the ages of 5 and 7, and primary 7 I should say, who have holes in their teeth. But again, there's still further more to do there. Now I'm moving on to talk about health improvement more generally, and just a bit about alcohol and smoking. Alcohol remains a really challenging area. It's not about those people over there who are drinking too much. It's actually all of us, and how we change the culture in Scotland and all drink a little bit less and a little bit less often. One of the programs we have is called Alcohol Brief Interventions, where people who go to their GP, perhaps with a fall that might have been related to alcohol, are screened to see if they're drinking at harmful levels, and if they are, given support and help to maybe reduce the amount that they're drinking. And we've been very successful. We've introduced that within primary care and also within our A&E department. And we're moving on now to introduce it a bit over the past year into maternity services as well, and that's going very well. The other area is smoking and how we help people to stop smoking or to reduce the amount that they're smoking. And we have a particular program that's targeted at areas, again, where people are living in poorer circumstances. And that's going reasonably well. We're certainly meeting the targets, but we've still got, as I say, ways to go. And one of the things we're going to be working on this year is actually the challenge of people smoking within the hospital grounds. It's a bone of contention with a lot of people, and it's how we encourage staff, visitors and patients to not smoke within the hospital grounds. Finally, I just want to mention an area where we're looking at, particularly when we're working with our partners with local authorities, in what's called the asset-based approach. And the idea of this is that we work with communities to try and help the communities improve their health, as opposed to us providing services. We look at what is important to the community and how do we then support and help them to help themselves. And that's a really inspiring bit of work. I'm now going to hand over to Ian Wallace, who's going to talk to us about infertility.
Hey, thanks, Anne-Marie. Yes, it came up at last year's annual review. It was our length of time to wait for in vitro fertilisation and IVF. So clearly this is helping couples to have a child who is difficult for them to do so. We have increased the number of cycles we offer in the last 3 or 4 months by 54%, so that's a significant level of investment. We've also changed our policy to women who are approaching their 40th birthday, because some of them are waiting in the queue in actually by the time they go to 40 they're ineligible for treatment. So we're actually addressing that so that that doesn't happen to anyone. NHS Tayside provide us with our what we call level 3 or assisted conception services, and they're also providing that same service to 5. So we're working as the 3 health boards really to reduce the time that women will wait for the second of the 2 cycles that we offer. So again, that should be a benefit. Some of you may be aware that the Scottish Government has given a pledge that there should be a maximum 12-month waiting time for access to IVF by the end of this Parliament. That's a stretching target. We have submitted plans for how we would achieve that, but it will require quite a significant investment. And I guess we're still awaiting a response, and we'll take matters forward. But overall, a better news story in that we have already put in additional cycles of treatment. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Marie. Ian, as a flavour of what we're doing within the health board to ensure that everybody has the best possible start to life and live longer, healthier lives. As I said, I'd take questions at the end of the section. Anybody got any questions on that section, or that heading, or any comments? Yes?
Dr. Laurie Wynne, Canada Community Care Trust.
Give me a minute, could I get a microphone?
Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay.
Dr. Laurie Wynne, Canada Community Care Trust. When the hospital was reviewed, we were worried about maternity care in rural areas. Now, there was talk about nurse practitioners being available in the rural areas in case mothers couldn't get to the hospital on time. Has this happened?
No, I mean, I have to say I'm not able to answer that question in the room. I think that we have, that's not something that we have plans to do, and we have been working really closely with the community, so I think it would be really important that we speak to you to make sure how we make sure the safest possible provision of maternity care, and within that there's still a wide range of choice for mothers, but that is not something that I'm aware of, and our head of midwifery is in the audience, and I don't know whether we could maybe ask Gillian to comment on that.
The rural areas, the 60-mile radius, which is a large area to cover.
Absolutely, our geography can be really quite challenging. We've been really thoughtful about our geography as well, and Gillian, you want to say?
Thanks, Angela. I'm Gillian Watson, head of midwifery in NHS Forth Valley. We took a decision a few years ago to actually split the service between general nursing and midwifery, and that was really because the general nurses actually couldn't keep their skills and expertise up, and that was actually more important. From a distance point of view, on average, most people actually travel a lot longer than 60 miles. Certainly down south, it's quite a common thing to travel that distance. And when the midwives took over the service from the midwifery aid, we've have a team of midwives who actually work out there. They're not double trained, they're not dual duty, they only do midwifery, so actually there's more hours out there now than there were previously. From a midwifery sense. One of the things that we would like to do, we're having a look at, is actually having maternity care assistants. And I wonder if it's maybe that you've heard of, rather than nurses?
No.
Because from a legislation point of view, it would definitely be midwives who would have to do the job. But one of the things we would like to do is have more maternity care assistants out there to supplement the midwives who are out. And that is to help with breastfeeding, and they're also trained to take observations and things like that. So that's one of the things we've got in the future.
It was mothers, the distance they have to come, and if they go into labour, there's only the midwives available. And in this particular group I was involved with, the midwives herself and her colleagues were concerned how they would cope.
Well, certainly that's never come to me like Angela. I'm happy to have a conversation with you afterwards and come out and speak to any groups if that would be helpful.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Gillian. Any other questions under this section? No? Okay, we'll move on. The next section, healthcare is safe for every person, every time. And
talk about a little bit about healthcare associated infection. This is infections that people get either while they're in hospital or associated with healthcare. This is something that we take very seriously in NHS Forth Valley. And one of the things is this is the first year, our first year in this beautiful new facility. And one of the features, there have been a number of features built into the facility to make it easier to clean and therefore to help reduce infections. Bugs are everywhere, so we'll never manage to get the number down to 0, but we're certainly going to try and get it down as far as we can. There are a couple of infections which are presently monitored very closely, both nationally and locally. One of them is a bloodstream infection caused by Staphylococcus aureus, and the other one is C. difficile. You've probably heard about both of them. Now, we've managed to reduce the numbers of both these infections significantly over the years, and we keep reducing them. We've now got very small numbers, so it gets harder and harder the smaller the numbers. But we've particularly targeted the infections that patients can get from these venflons that you sometimes get if you come into hospital, and we've been very successful with that. Now the numbers are very small. And that's by paying particular attention to putting them in, the care of them, and making sure that they're well looked after and taken out if there is a problem. With C. difficile, we've also now got very small numbers, and that's largely around good prescribing, because the C. difficile lives in the gut of the stomach of many people that are quite unaffected by it. But if you're given very broad spectrum or very strong antibiotics, sometimes it can strip all the good bacteria away and let this bug flourish. So one of the things we've done is looked at the policy for prescribing. And I think antibiotic prescribing more generally is something that we need to pay a lot of attention to, because there are increasing numbers of bugs that are becoming resistant to our antibiotics. So we need to be very thoughtful about whether you should be prescribed an antibiotic at all, so we don't encourage this resistance. We've been very successful this year in terms of norovirus. That's the winter vomiting bug. And I think that's partly due to some of the features that are built into this hospital. We've actually had no wards closed at all in this past year from the winter vomiting bug, which is great. We are regularly inspected by the Healthcare Environment Inspectorate, and Forth Valley was inspected, an unannounced inspection in September of 2011, and we had 4 requirements and 1 recommendation, all of which we have now met. It was a very positive inspection, and we're very pleased with the way that went. I just want to finish by saying that the public have a very important role to play in terms of preventing infections. Just as it's important for staff to use hand washing and the alcohol gels, so it's important for visitors and people coming into the hospital to also use these. You'll see them at the entrance to every ward, to use them to make sure that you don't bring an infection into the hospital too. And if you are ill or your children are ill, particularly if you've got tummy upset, not to come in and visit, because the potential is that you can infect the person you're visiting and perhaps more widely. So that's what I want to say about healthcare-associated infection. It's one of my pet subjects, so I can speak for a long time, but I won't. And I'm going to hand over to Angela Wallace, who's going to talk about patient safety programme.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. A big part of what I'm going to mention about the successes of the Scottish Patient Safety Programme does have a focus around infection control, and I'll touch on that. I just wanted to say an opening comment before I talk about the successes, particularly of the programme. NHS Forth Valley, and all of you in the room will be aware, have been on such a transition around developing new models of care and getting our buildings and supporting our staff to deliver that. So Forth Valley's successes across the whole system, not just in the acute hospitals, around safety and quality improvement, has been built in over such a long period of time. And similarly, as Anne-Marie's plea about the public really helping us achieve some of our infection control goals and challenges in the hospital as well as the community, I wanted just to pay honour to patient and public panel members and patient representatives from the CHP who have really been on this long journey with us around patient safety. Some of them are here today and have been hugely influential in achieving some of the things that I'll talk about. The Patient Safety Programme was a national programme. Scotland was the first country to tackle patient safety, initially just in the acute care, and I'm going to focus a wee bit on the acute care for today's review because that's been the focus from the Scottish Government in the last couple of reviews. But as you sit here in years to come, we'll be talking about patient safety programme across all aspects of the care, the health care that we deliver. It started in 2007 and hugely brave as a country to tackle patient safety together. But the message was that the care in Scotland was already safe, and what we were trying to do was make it safer still. And I think from some of the things I'll point on, this will be a journey that we'll probably never finish, but I will talk about some remarkable achievements. And some of the presentations we've heard from Anne, and when you hear a presentation from Lorna, who will touch on both patient experience and patient safety. The Scottish Government were very brave and they set us out two large goals. One was to reduce adverse events, so things that happen that perhaps we can prevent to happen by 30%, and to reduce the amount of deaths in hospital by 15%. We started the programme in 2007 and we were asked to achieve that by the end of 2011, and I'm delighted to say that Forth Valley have achieved both of those targets. We've sustained the 30% reduction, and in addition to that, our mortality rate, or the deaths that we were asked to prevent in hospital care, continues to reduce, and the government happily have increased that target for us, and we're delighted, and I'll say something about that just at the very end. So what have we been doing? What is the patient safety programme around, and what have we done to achieve that? As I said in Anne-Marie's, to touch on Anne-Marie's link, so much of this programme was about preventing infections. In critical care, where our most sick patients are being cared for, and you've heard an example of children, in the same environment in adults, we were asked to reduce the infections that happen to patients. And when I was younger and ward assistant in intensive care, there was almost an expectation that some patients on ventilators or having drips or catheters would just get an infection. And similarly to the example around we can prevent dental disease, we know now that we absolutely can prevent almost all of these infections. I'm going to touch on some spectacular results in a wee bit. We also wanted to concentrate on any patients who were receiving drips or catheters in wards and other areas, and around patients who had surgery and had wound infections. One of the key aspects of the programme, and one that the board has been spending lots of time on recently, is understanding how we identify those patients who are becoming very unwell quickly, and by thus treating them earlier and preventing cardiac arrests. And that's been a key focus of the programme, and again, it's something that we've been extremely successful around. One of the other categories was around reducing risk to patients who are having high-risk medications like warfarin, or for patients who are coming into hospital with complex medications and medication histories, and how we make sure if we're changing the medications in hospital that those changes are communicated effectively to the patients and to the family doctors or GPs, so that the care that's decided in hospital can carry safely through. And that's been a real focus this morning in our public session about how we manage to make sure we get that right. In addition to that, leadership have had a role. Board members, we've managed to include patient and public representatives as well, is walking around, speaking to staff and understanding what's getting in the way of them providing the highest quality and safety of care that they can do. And this is one of the most exciting things of the patient safety programme, and I say this for everyone who will listen to me. It was about finding what the staff understood on the ground that was making the system difficult for them to care. So it wasn't about looking for someone to blame, it was about looking to find the solutions that what the staff were facing, so that board members and general manager colleagues can fix the system so it makes it easier for staff to care for patients. And we do one of these weekly. Sometimes we do more than that, and the staff are fantastic at telling us openly and honestly what we need to fix, and we in turn have to do 3 things for them that makes patient care safe, and we do that over and over again. And uniquely, this programme, when we attended the first national learning set, NHS Forth Valley was the only board that had patient and public representatives with them, with their staff, and we continue to do that through the programme, as well as things like sighting, hand washing, and involving in the new hospital some of the design features that Anne-Marie has described around that. So what else are we doing to achieve these spectacular results? I'm going to just touch on a few results, but one of the key things around this has been hand washing, has been staff working together to support communication, and communication has been a real feature in our public session today, to make sure that things that people are worrying about or things that people need to know are taken care of, so that there's no chance of us making a mistake around patient care. And one of the big things is about culture, about openness, so that staff can tell us when things are not right, and equally work together to try and find ways of fixing things. So that's the patient safety programme and what we've been doing, and I'm really pleased to say that it's going to continue in terms of across many areas. So as I said, our successes have been we have reached our 2 big goals. In addition to that, in intensive care, patients on a breathing machine that need support with their ventilation. We've had no ventilator-acquired pneumonia in this hospital since June 2010. In addition to that, we had very, very long periods, so over 2 years since any patient has acquired a ventilator-acquired pneumonia. In addition to that, patients requiring drugs or feeding through a large drip into one of their veins, they have had no catheter-related bloodstream infections for over 330 days in this organisation. Patients who have had abdominal hysterectomies, we have had no patient have a wound infection, or we have had over 300 days since the last time we've had a wound infection in that group of patients. Lorna's going to talk to me well about patient experience, but one of the most extraordinary things that we have achieved in theatres is that every time a patient's about to undergo surgery, everyone pauses before knife to skin, before that operation starts, to make sure that everything that we need to complete that operation safely, with everything that patient needs in mind, happens every time in our theatres. That result is outstanding, not just by Scottish comparison, but actually internationally. And I know that every board in Scotland has been spending time with Lorna to try and find out how we have done that. It seems quite simple. You probably think, why is that difficult to do? But it has been an extraordinary achievement, and we're delighted about that. Another significant thing, again it touches to infection control, is around hand hygiene. All of our wards are monitored constantly on whether staff are washing their hands. I'm delighted to see we have a target to achieve 95% compliance or above. Clearly we aimed for 100%, and I know some of my non-executive directors are passionate about that being 100%. But in something like August alone, in 97% compliance in CAU, 100% compliance in accident emergency, 100% compliance in the labour ward, and 100% compliance in one of our surgical wards. And I could go on and on around the results around that. That job will never be finished, but that's something that we are always going to be a key focus for us. In conclusion, the Scottish Patient Safety Programme was part of a range of things we were doing in Forth Valley to make care safer. Scottish Government and colleagues who assess us on this recognise Forth Valley is doing incredibly well around that, and that's because we have incredible staff, to pick up a comment the Chairman made at the beginning. The programme is expanding to include mental health, paediatrics, coronary artery heart disease, sepsis, and preventing clots. Mental health, we are one of the first boards to pilot that, and we're delighted about that. And the Cabinet Secretary launched just a couple of months ago to say that harm-free care, so extending the Scottish Patient Safety Programme in acute care, is launched, and the official launch will be in November. So this agenda we remain committed to, as does the Scottish Government.
Thanks, Angela. You can tell the enthusiasm that Angela has about this. I thought I'd just focus for a minute or two on adverse events, which is really where harm occurs to patients and our care. The healthcare is a complicated business, and unfortunately, even with the best will and intention, harm does occur. And the important thing for us is that we're learning from events such as those. It's called significant adverse events or serious clinical incidents. Some incidents can be relatively minor, but we still have to do better. Sometimes they're a lot more serious. Ayrshire and Arran has been a wee bit in the focus recently around how they'd handled significant incidents, and they were reviewed by Healthcare Improvement Scotland, and we're all going to get a review. And I think the report's been extremely helpful, I think, in guiding us as to where we could improve our systems. We had been looking at this anyway, but I think the report has been extremely helpful. I mean, clearly, we all strive to reduce risk to patients wherever we can, and the patient safety programme is just an excellent example. But where things go wrong, we want to learn. We automatically review all serious complications or incidents that occur. Sometimes the complication isn't a direct result of anything we've done, it's just been an unfortunate thing that's occurred. But even when that's the case, there's often things we find that we could have done better anyway. So there's a byproduct of it which is extremely helpful. Our staff have access to an electronic reporting system, so they can go online and they flag up these reports. And as Angela said, it's very important that we're encouraging staff to do that. And sometimes if you hear in the press that adverse events or harm to patients has increased, it may well be actually because staff are more aware and are reporting more, and there's like an open culture. It's not a ennobling culture, it's a just culture, and people have to be accountable for what they do. But at the same time, if people get pilloried, then that could have an adverse effect on people reporting. So we encourage that reporting. We also look at a sample of case records as part of the patient safety programme every month, and so we trawl looking for harm, because that way we can measure what's going on in the organisation. And as Angela said, we have a sort of 20% reduction target which we've met. I think the areas where I recognise, like my colleagues recognise, we do better is engagement with patients and their families. When things go wrong, it can be very difficult to make that move and speak to patients and relatives. Sometimes they're not ready to hear either and find it difficult to engage. But we are working very hard to try and get in there early and to get families and patients around the table and discuss matters. And what they want to know as well, they won't have to anyone else that you've learned from this. And I think again sharing the adverse incident reviews and reports is a way forward. Also, I think from a board perspective, it's important that we are absolutely upfront with board members about what's happening in the organisation and the learning. So we're improving our board reporting as a result of that. So I think that's really all I would like to say on that. But I guess it's something of great interest to the public, knowing that they're safe when they go to hospital or in fact general practice or anywhere else where they have service.
Okay. Thanks very much for these report backs. I think it'll hopefully reassure to everybody the efforts that have been made to ensure that people are safe when they are in hospital. The only way you could eliminate infections is still patients and our visitors visit these patients, but once people come through the door, they can carry infection. But it's tremendous effort, and again the work with the patient, the public panel to monitor that is tremendous. So thanks very much to them for that. Any questions on that section? Yes?
I would just like to ask if there's ever been any studies done on nurses' uniforms, because private or something may be quite distressing when you're in Morrison's or the Thistle Centre and you see the nursing assistants, staff nurses, sisters walking about in the uniforms, and they're so, the kind of uniforms that they have nowadays. I mean, this to me is cross infection with a capital cross.
It's just a cute to see us have them back their hats and aprons as well, but I mean, the uniforms now are, I know they look casual, and
that's the point I'm really getting at.
I know. I just wanted to share that whole private one. I have to say that staff shouldn't be leaving the building in their uniforms, and we have in this hospital and other parts of the hospital, we do have facilities for staff to change, and that is exactly what we expect staff to do. We have a robust uniform policy, and we have had quite a focus from our general manager and chief nurse colleagues to make sure that that's monitored. It's easier in this hospital because there are more facilities and shared facilities because of the nature of the design, as Anne-Marie has drawn out, but we do see that not everyone adheres to that, and we have been taking action where possible. I have to say that the results from the patient safety programme around, Anne-Marie's described things like norovirus and other things and other types of infections. We're not seeing huge or any amounts of significant amount of cross-infection in terms of the hospital, but I take your point. I think there is a professionalism issue, and we actively encourage as well as police our policies, and I respect that. And I think the staff do look more casual. We are very thoughtful about the whole uniform policy, because there is a respect and dignity thing in terms of speaking to families and patients. But I take your point that the uniforms now are suited for moving and handling and other things that we were probably not so protected against when we were younger. I don't know if any of my other colleagues want to say that. Have them back in their hats. No, I have to say, but I'm allowed one major moment. I don't know whether other colleagues want to say anything, but it's a fair point.
Just a general point, remember that some people might actually be on duty and maybe they going about community duties, and also, not to sound like I'm blaming the local authorities, but a lot of the care staff working for local authorities, or indeed other people, look like they're wearing nursing uniforms, because I've done that myself, where I've seen somebody and thought that looks like a nurse, and then I've on closer inspection realised it wasn't. So you do sometimes see people in uniforms who should be out there in uniforms, maybe not the Thistle Centre. Stretching it a bit.
Good point raised. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next section. The next section, everyone has a positive experience of healthcare. And to start off this section, we've got a presentation from Lorna Ferguson, who's going to talk about patient experience in the theatre.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lorna Ferguson, and I'm the theatre coordinator here in Forth Valley Royal Hospital. My role in theatre includes patient safety lead, and from that role I've got a great motivation to also improve our patients' experiences as well as our patients' safety. So, which one is more important? Patient involvement or patient safety? It's a contentious debate within the professional literature, and NHS Forth Valley, as Angela has said, are leading the way in Scotland with our patient safety outcomes. We have had a number of boards come to visit us, so NHS Lothian have now been twice, because they just can't grasp the work that we've done and how we've managed to achieve the results we have. Within theatres, we have created a team culture through the use of safety briefings and using the World Health Organisation Safer Surgery Checklist, which allows us to detect and rectify any issues that could potentially cause harm. However, involving patients in their care in theatre is indeed very challenging. Patients are with us for such a short period of time in theatre compared to their whole episode of care, and it's very difficult to build a relationship with our patients within that time frame. Decisions around treatments and surgery have already taken place by the time our patients reach us in theatre, and there still appears a mystery around theatres, perhaps because most theatre departments do have restricted access, also the way theatres are portrayed in TV drama shows, etc., and the fact that some of our patients don't actually recall their time in theatre with us. So people's perceptions are a bit ambiguous, and therefore their anxiety levels are very high. Research and evidence tells us that standardisation equals safe care, but patients aren't standard, so we shouldn't be standardising our interactions with our patients. So it's these interactions we've focused on within theatre to look at our patient involvement and experience endeavours. Having seen a lot of the work going on in Forth Valley in recent times and currently, focused on patient involvement, patient experience, we felt that we were missing an opportunity within theatre to help add in to the whole of the patient journey to make it as positive an experience as possible. We undertook a number of observations of care, and that gave us a starting point to see what interactions can we look at and focus on that have the most impact on our patients' experiences. It allowed us to give staff feedback and then provide learning sessions for staff, focus on first impressions, etc. From that, we also needed to know what did our patients think. So what was our patients' feedback? There were no tools out there that we could just take on and use for places like theatres, so we developed our own patient experience tool. The questionnaire is given to all patients coming through our ambulatory care unit, which means every patient coming in for day surgery or 23-hour surgery gets a patient experience questionnaire to complete. The feedback from these questionnaires are used to inform our working practices every single day. We discuss that feedback every single morning with our whole teams. However, a lot of the questionnaires, when they came back, they didn't have specific comments on them. So we engaged with our patient and public panel members, and through their involvement, we've tweaked the questionnaires again, and we're now getting a lot more comments back, which then has a better impact on our practices in the department. From a safety perspective, we must undertake a number of checks that ensure we have the right patient at the right time for the right procedure. But this is an example of some of our patients' perceptions of those checks. So the day surgery nurse asked me who I was, the theatre nurse asked me who I was, anaesthetic nurse asked me who I was, and then the anaesthetist asked me who I was. Why don't people know who I am? It would appear that we've put safety before our patient's experience. But that was just a failure to explain to our patients why we need to do these checks. And failure to explain things properly to our patients absolutely increases their anxiety. So getting feedback from our patients have led to positive changes in our working practice, and that's now absolutely evident from the questionnaires that we now get back. So although we are presented with a great challenge of how to involve our patients in their care in theatre, we can absolutely ensure that they're better informed. We're just at the beginning of our patient involvement work. We're way far down the line for patient safety work. But within theatre, we do have a long way to go. But we have a number of staff with the ideas and the will to overcome the challenges around how do you include patient involvement and patient experience in such an area like theatres. We have patient and public panel members who are willing and eager to engage with us and help us with this work. And most importantly, we have enabled a significant shift in our local culture which now supports this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna. It's a beautiful example of how patients see their whole care experience and don't separate patient experience from patient safety. And Forth Valley, as described around the work around the Scottish Patient Safety Programme, have been working for some time around patient experience. Lorna did say it, we were one of the first boards that addressed this, and we've been really lucky enough. This has always been supported as a top corporate objective, along with all of the other difficult and challenging things. And Chairman mentioned it earlier that this is one of the patient-centredness and patient experience is something that's one of our values, and we're determined to deliver it. We have been measuring patient experience for a long time, and to see Lorna taking it into an area that really no one else had gone, and she looked at the literature, she couldn't find other people who had tried that. In Forth Valley, I've actually had a long history of this happening, whether it was in GP practices, particularly mental health in Forth Valley led the way for all of us. Some of the things that we started to do as a board was because of the work that was done with mental health and mental health users. We quickly made sure that we could try and do something around acute hospital, because at the time there was a huge concern many years ago that perhaps people were more technically caring rather than caring in terms of patient needs. So we have been measuring it for some time, and we've got lots of examples of this happening on the ground all of the time. About 4 years ago now, the Scottish Government designed patient experience questionnaires for the acute services, although we think that that will happen in other areas as well, is for our GP practice colleagues, and we have now 3 sets of results. The whole of Scotland's results have been really high, people were delighted to see the scores, and we are measured on things that matter to patients. Do we give people right information, which has been a real theme about today? How do we communicate with one another? Do we provide privacy when people are being treated? Do we keep our environments clean and tidy? Do the patients see staff washing their hands? Are you treated with dignity and respect? Are you treated as an individual? And they are the type of things we were mentioning for many years, and now the Scottish Government are doing that. As I said, the whole of the country's results are high, and Forth Valley's results are high in that regard. There are a few of our results which are lower than the national average, but only by 2 or 3 points. Those points we have taken from the surveys, and we're committed to working on them. And indeed, this year, 5 of the areas that we were working on that our patients and public said we needed to do better was about being bothered about noise during the night. I'm reliably informed that's not about nurses' tea breaks or anything like that. And we knew in Falkirk and Stirling Royal Infirmaries that patients were bothered by noise at night. We had been working on that with our patient panel for some time, but we have improved, and I think the environment here helps about that. Patients know who is in charge of the ward has increased this year, and again, that's a question that hasn't increased nationally, but Forth Valley has increased. Nurses introduce themselves every time, and patients are given explanation before moving to other wards. Patients have reported that their spiritual and other religious needs are met, and they were things that were showing lower than the national average. I'm delighted to see that we have improved in all of those areas. There are 2 areas in which Forth Valley needs to do more work, and that's around the discharge of patients, of knowing how I am and what I need to do when I go home, and that was a feature last year, has it been this year, and we are working on it. Indeed, again, patient to public, we're raising that with Chairman this morning. We've agreed to do additional actions to what we're already doing. And information about waiting times in A&E, really high reported around the care in A&E, but around how long do I have to wait. And some of that is, of course, around expectations. This was a survey of 1,500 patients. We had a 47% response rate from our public, and this snapshot of care was from October 2010 to September 2011, and they were just published last week. So Forth Valley is working hard on the national surveys and has a real inbuilt culture and infrastructure that supports patient experience and patient-centredness. I'm just going to move on to complaints now, and there is a theme in the last couple of sections about receiving and responding to feedback, and complaints and the management of complaints and responding to the feedback that patients and families, their carers, representatives give us will always be a top focus. Scottish Government has included it in one of the top targets, but it's always been a top target for the board, and we're delighted to see that features on the national balance scorecards. You've heard today through various patient public panel, you've heard about the way that staff interact with patients and families all of the time. So receiving feedback for us is really important, but complaints and raising concerns and issues is equally as important. And I know sometimes it feels in such a negative context, but we have to respond to them too. Our first priority has been over a number of years, and it will be helped by the Patients' Rights Bill, is to respond to issues and concerns when they happen. And our staff are skilled to do that, and we've been working really hard with staff to do that more and more, and we will do that. But as we've heard today from some of our patient and public panel members, people are still afraid to raise concerns while they're still in our care. And we know that from the national work that's been done, that's even more so for people around their family doctors or GPs, for example. But we need to support people to make complaints where they need to, and we have been doing that, and we have had, over the last couple of years, a significant increase in complaints experienced in Forth Valley, and concentrated particularly around the acute services. We have been constantly reviewing and understanding these issues and responding to them, and learning from them, and the board spends a significant amount of time making sure that we undertake the process properly, as well as learn from the experience. The increase we've had in complaints has had a reduction in performance, and the board has been working really hard to address that. We have taken the opportunity of preparing for the introduction of Patients' Rights Bills to redesign our patient relations approach to dealing with complaints and issues, and that's already producing reporting significant dividends this year. One of the key areas is about responding and keeping in touch with families, and we've done that over this period of where it's been challenging, as well as that's the mode that we wish to work in the future. Our staff are much more investigative, so we're really getting to the heart of the problem, so we can reassure families that we've learned and that most families only want us to prevent this to happen to someone else, and we have been doing that. We're changing our systems, and we're working with our Scottish Health Council colleagues in a very independent manner to make sure that our complaints process is robust and fair, and we're doing what patients and families ask us to do. So Forth Valley has had a rise in complaints over the last couple of years. We are satisfied. We don't have a particular area or issues. It is around clinical treatment, but it's a wide category, and within that there isn't a common theme or a common area. I just wanted to finish on a positive note, though. One of the things we are determined over a long period of time was to try and reduce the amount of complaints that we experience around attitude and behaviour of staff, and that is something that no group of staff wanted to be experiencing. We would never reduce the amount of complaints because we want to have the feedback, but we would rather deal with them locally at the source. And I can report over the last 3 years we have saw a significant reduction in the amount of complaints we are experiencing about attitude and behaviour of staff. And I think that's really positive. So the board is committed to understanding the feedback, using it as part of quality improvement, and also supporting staff to get the care right for patients, and also understanding what's getting in the way of staff caring for patients. And I would leave that there, Chairman, and open it to any questions.
If I could perhaps pick up now around some of the access targets that we have. My name is Fiona Ramsey, and I'm the Director of Finance at the board. Wanted to pick up, Angela mentioned accident and emergency. The first one I wanted to pick up was our target around that. We've got about approximately 76,000 A&E attendances every year, and our target is that we have to have a maximum wait of 4 hours. It's fair to say our performance around that is mixed. The majority of time we do achieve it, but not consistently. And it isn't always possible to predict when you get particularly busy periods, or for example, you'll be aware recently there was a serious road traffic accident, and that will impact on our performance on those particular days. So it's just to highlight that there are times that won't be achieved, but broadly we are achieving them. We are looking at ways that we can improve around how our whole system and the whole flow through the patient journey in the hospital can actually work to see how best we can actually make improvements there. And the other thing to highlight around that is that we also have our minor injuries unit at Stirling Community Hospital, where frequently the wait is considerably shorter than that, and they can deal with a wide range of minor injuries such as minor burns and scalds, sprains, cuts and grazes, and they can also arrange for x-rays around suspected broken bones, and it's to encourage the public that can actually use those facilities. The wait will be quicker, and that can then ease the pressure on our accident emergency department to allow us to prioritise in that particular area. The second area I wanted to move on to was our cancer target wait. There are 2 targets in this area. There are for patients referred urgently with a suspicion of cancer that have to begin their treatment within 62 days, and the target of that is 95%. In 2011-12, we haven't actually achieved around that. We've sitting at a delivery rate of 92% for that. And for patients diagnosed with cancer, that they begin their treatment within 31 days, and we have achieved the target for that. Just to highlight some of the reasons of the issues we may not achieve, it's particularly where we have small specialties that you may have one consultant that's dealing with them, and if we've got staff turnover or a vacancy or something happens in that particular specialty, that can cause us issues around that. We've had a few consultant vacancies in particular areas in the last year. These have predominantly now been recruited to, and we're expecting and seeing an improved performance coming through from August this year. I'd also like to highlight, I don't know if anybody was listening to the radio or the media today, and there was highlighting the Detect Cancer Early programme, and we were highlighting again the benefit and the improvement that we can get around outcomes if people present early with their concerns and their symptoms. And you will I'm sure have seen earlier this month Elaine C. Smith doing the breast cancer awareness. So we're anticipating that there will be an increase in demand for our services, and are working through what the implications of that would be, and encouraging people to attend early. The last strand that I'd want to touch on is forthcoming attraction. The Patients' Rights Bill will be coming in from the 1st of October, and around access targets for that. What that means is for planned inpatient or day case treatment, there will be a 12-week maximum wait from the decision to treat to when the treatment actually commences. And that comes in from the 1st of October. In line with other boards, we've been reviewing our processes around this, and for us there have been some changes to the processes that we're going through, and as a consequence of that we will have a number of patients over the next few months and currently whose wait has exceeded 12 weeks. And you will see that coming through when you see some of the published stats that come out later in the year. So what are we doing to address that? We're putting on a range of additional sessions planned across a number of specialties, predominantly at the weekends. So a number of patients would be offered appointments at the weekends out with the normal hours. We're working with the Golden Jubilee Hospital in Clydebank, the National Waiting Time Centre, and with Kings Park to give us that bit of additional capacity to help us deal with the little bit of backlog that we have. And we're assessing the patients that are arranged for suitability to actually go to those facilities. Again, we have some challenges where we have smaller specialties where you may only have one consultant who deals with that. So obviously 12 weeks can be a challenge in the subspecialty areas. And we have a number, I'll just give one example around ophthalmology, for example. We actually have an increasing demand for that service, so we have to look at how we address that as we move forward. And I think just one other thing is more of a plea around this area is that we do still have a number of patients who don't attend for their appointments, and for us that's not a good use of resource. So we do encourage the public, if for any reason, perfectly valid reasons, that patients can't attend, if they let us know as soon as possible, then we can offer that slot to another patient and then make sure somebody else is getting their treatment, and we're making best use of our resources.
Okay, thanks very much for these presentations. Very real challenges to meet the government's targets in this section. Any questions? Yes? Okay.
One of the main complaints I get is the patient's transport. If you have to come to the hospital for an appointment, you have to ring a number. You have to ring a number in Edinburgh. The first thing they ask is, are you disabled? We have a lot of elderly people, obviously, in the community, and age doesn't come into it. An 86-year-old lady had to attend an appointment. It takes 2 hours for her to get to the hospital and 2 hours to come back on public transport. And she was told she wouldn't get public transport, although her age was 86. Patient transport, sorry.
Yes, it's an ambulance
Yes.
service that you're talking about. I don't know, David, whether you want to add anything. We were constantly in dialogue with the ambulance service about making sure that we work together.
They take the ambulance. The person on the other end of the line, they take it as gospel that they're not entitled to transport for age, and I think age should come into it.
Yeah. Any colleagues? David?
I think the challenge, of course, is that the criteria for ambulance transport are set by the Scottish Ambulance Service. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that age in itself is one of the criteria, because it's usually a medical criteria for that transport. But of course that can create particular difficulties for patients who have to come any great distance and their age, etc., etc. We've been working with the ambulance service to see what we can do to improve many of these services, and we meet with them regularly. But I think, to be fair to our colleagues in ambulance services, we talk about increasing demand and activity being up and up and up. They too are feeling a bit of the pressure there, and they're trying to readjust their resources to better meet the real needs of patients who come out. If I can quote an example, we've repatriated a lot of renal patients into Forth Valley very recently from Glasgow. Previously, all these patients would have been going in an ambulance service, but the amount of work that we bring back locally has increased the demand in the ambulance service, and it's trying to balance all these different patient needs off against the home.
I understand that, but I hoped you'd encourage them to take age into consideration with elderly from rural areas.
You make a very valid point, and something the board will look at. Not promising we'll do enough work, but we certainly will look at it, look at the options. Sorry, it was somebody here.
My question is about being patient experience. If people are being asked to come in for their operation, why is it that they have to be actually in the hospital before they're told that the operation is cancelled and have to go home? That's not a nice experience for anyone, and I know it is happening.
Yeah, I think I'll deal with that in a more general point, and then other colleagues may want to say something. I mean, we never do that if we can avoid doing it, because it doesn't work for us as well as it doesn't work for you. But quite often we do have situations where things happen and we therefore have to make other arrangements. We had the example that Angela quoted earlier, or I think it was Fiona that mentioned the road accident. So we do have these kind of things that happen from time to time. One of the very important things that we try and do at pre-op assessments is make sure that any of the issues that might on the day lead to cancellation, I'm thinking things like latex allergies and things like that, we make sure through that process that those kind of issues are known, so people shouldn't turn up and we discover later on in the day an issue that prevents them from getting an operation. Again, it may be that somebody's off sick and that's the person who was the appropriate person to do the operation. So I think the general point I would make is, believe you me, we don't do it ourselves, we don't want it to happen. We know how upsetting it is when people gear themselves up for an operation. It's happened to friends of mine very recently when they gear themselves up and they go, and it's a very big psychological blow, quite apart from all the, usually you've asked somebody to take you and all of those kind of things, and sometimes you've fasted and all of those kind of things. I think if we could link back to Fiona's point about waiting times and seeing people quickly, we want to see people as quickly and as systematically, and the thing to go smoothly. We want you to come in at the time you need to come in and to go home smoothly with the right support. That's what we're really trying to do all the time, and when we do it well, we're pretty good at it. When we do it wrong, sometimes we make a pretty big mess of it, I have to say. But
I thought the patient might have left a number, a contact number that the hospital could have got in touch before they left home to say, you know, I'm sorry, get off.
Well, I'm sure we do that. So I don't know, do other colleagues want to say anything more specific on that? Mr. David? I'm glad you came, David.
I'm just worried Julie's going to break her ankle down the stairs. I mean, first off, I would like to apologise because it's something that we do, but we deeply regret doing, and we don't. It's not something that we do lightly. I'd just like to reassure everybody that before we actually cancel, we do everything we possibly can to make sure that we don't cancel. We see if we could perhaps get somebody through the day surgery unit, if there's any options that we can work to make that happen. But regretfully, sometimes it just isn't possible, and we're left with no option but to cancel. I would say that we don't ask everybody to come in. If we look ahead and we think it's going to be a particularly difficult day, we would say to some patients, please phone us before you leave the house and give us a shout to let us know what the activity is. But very often things will happen overnight, and when we come in the morning, it's just one of these horrible things that happen, and we just don't have any options but, I'm afraid, to cancel on the day. But we really do what we can to make sure that that's an absolute minimum.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is James Nimmo. I've used the hospital Falkirk, Stirling and here quite a lot, and generally I've been very happy with it. I'm going to do something unusual. I come to these meetings and I was expecting to see ministers here. Could we say to them through the clerks, they were missed slightly. I'm surprised at myself, but I very rarely give credits. I used to be a mystery shopper outside, and now I feel that I've got to say to you 8, you did very well.
Thank you.
Complaints. As a retired civil servant, I like my pen. I write. I even wrote to you, Chairman, and you didn't write back. You gave it to Fiona. I'm sure wrote well, but I expected you to write to me, because that's the type of person I am. However, complaints, the essence of complaints, and I've written a lot. I've got an autobiography at home that I'm now compiling in my 79th year, and it's brilliant, especially the health board complaints that I made. I think truth is the essence of a reply to a complaint. If you've done wrong, admit it. If you haven't done wrong, say your staff have not done it, because the person writing, unusual, could be wrong. So I've said the good things about you lot. The Director Generals, as I told Nicola the last time, should be told they were missed. But quite honestly, I don't see how they could put much more into what you lot have said. I've enjoyed being in Larbour this afternoon. I walked down your corridors to find myself here. I've never seen so many happy faces in a hospital in my life. So I say to them, because I like jokes, when I'm nervous, I try and do a joke. I've even got the chairman maybe almost laughing. I say to people who look happy, you must be getting well paid. And they say to me, well, that's not true. But there's something about this hospital that is happy. And it must be you people that's doing it, because you are the directors. With that, Chairman, I enjoy being here. I'll not take any more of your time with questions. And your staff who attended to me coming in were excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your comments, and apologise for not just coming to the point here.